Good evening, friends. This is FIDE Senior Trainer Shekhar Sahu. I welcome you on behalf of UN Chess Academy to this training session. I would like to discuss about the classic games. It is very important that if a player is serious about competitive chess, he must know the strategic secrets of the former great players. That is why it is very important to know how the former world champions or grandmasters they applied the positional themes in their games. I would like to show you classic games in four parts. The games of the former world champions, Smyslov, Botvinnik, Tal, Spassky, Petrosian, Karpov, Kasparov, Anand, and other old grandmasters. So today I would like to discuss the games of former world champion Botvinnik and Smyslov. So in the game of Botvinnik and Alatoshov, while discussing the game, I will also throw light on some the modern approach of the same opening. In this particular game, the game started with a d4. Normally, a player should start with a center pawn e4 or d4 generally. So d4 gives to close games and e4 brings open games. So in this question, e6, the idea is to play a French or a Dutch. Suppose white plays c4, it becomes a French, and white plays c4, it becomes a Dutch. So Botvinnik started c4. Now black has a choice to play d5 or knight f6 or f5. These are the reasonable moves. d5. So that means it becomes a queen's gambit decline, or it can lead to a Catalan opening. Knight f3 to the center. The player should castle quickly. Then he should occupy the center and coordinate all his pieces as fast as possible without wasting time. The idea of the move, normal course, the player plays knight f6. Why he plays this move? Because in this such a case, the exchange variation, or they call it Ragozin system, is not good, because the black bishop will come to f5 very quickly, and white does not have the move bishop g5. It's not a good idea to play pawn into pawn, pawn into pawn. And now knight c3, he can play a move like c6. There is no bishop g5. He can't play e3 blocking his own bishop. This is the drawback, that if white plays exchange variation now, he will not get a good game. So it is a idea of the former world champion Tigran Petrosian. So knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, the main line, castle e3. And now, yes, it is not a good move. The basic principle for opening is to not to waste time in opening stage with unnecessary pawn moves. This is an unnecessary pawn move. It's not a good idea. It was better that he should play knight b d7 is okay. h6 followed by h6 followed by pawn b6 is okay. Tatakor variation. So there are so many moves, but h6 is a waste of time. We should understand the idea behind each move. What black wants is, he wants to take dc4 and then play b5, bb7, getting a tempo. But white meets the plan with pawn takes pawn. Now pawn, if you knight into pawn is not good on account of the control of center will not be there. So pawn takes pawn and bishop d3. It was also possible to take immediately bishop into knight and queen b3. This is possible, bishop into queen b3, but white waits. Now black has problem. Where to develop the white square bishop? Black is behind development and also not so good in center. So white has already got an advantage because of black's poor opening play. Now c6. He wants to consolidate the center. Queen c2. There is a direct threat. It is very important that a chess player, while playing a game, a competitive game or a serious game, should always be alert about opponent's threats from beginning to end. Now, there is an immediate threat. Sometimes there is positional threat. Now there is a direct threat bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and he wants to take h7 pawn. So he plays knight d7. Now the position remains very passive. The c8 bishop is not coming. That means the rook is also not coming. That white takes advantage of this, plays g4. It's not a blunder because when the knight takes it, he can play bishop into h7 and h6 is further back. In this case, he will take, or then I will play g5 or h4 g5 with an attack. So in this position, he plays knight to g4. But now the trading is good. Bishop into pawn. Now bishop. Now white wants to attack. Now we should always take care about exchanging pieces. Now bishop exchange will help black to develop his queen. So white should maintain more pieces and attacking chances as well, and not freeing black from the cramped situation. Now he plays bishop f4 and knight f6. Now bishop comes back because there is a double attack and should return to a safe square, bishop d3. Now this is bad. Black is to concentrate, at least complete his development. He should have played at least b6, then trying to get his pieces into the action, preparing rook c8 and c5. So the better to complete development. At least this was, though the position is bad, he should prepare and try for the break. But further bad move. Now you cannot take the knight. Knight into bishop, you will lose a piece. There is a check and the piece is lost, f4 knight. So you cannot take. That means after this move he has to retreat. And now bishop e5. Now you can see that knight on h5 is very poorly placed. Black king position is bad. So castle. Now the white has already huge advantage because the kings are castled opposite side. In such a situation, the players normally storm pawns to open a file, but the file is already open here. I think there will be a decisive kingside attack, and the position is hopeless for black. I don't think black can save the game anymore. So he tries, but then rook g1 to on the open line. Now aiming at h5. The queen is aiming. Already the watching h5. Already there is a problem here. So and winning the game. Two threats. Knight into f5 is a threat, and queen into h5 is a threat. He cannot beat both the threats, and the game is completely lost. Hopeless position. Lost. Now, what we should be observing in the classic games, in nowadays also the same strategic points are valid. That number one is king position. It is known the king is lost, the game is lost. One might have a huge material advantage, big positional advantage, but if one overlooks a mating threat, and he loses the game quickly. The king in the center is more vulnerable. So a player should castle as fast as possible. That is one point. The king must be safe. And the pawn cover of the king also should be intact as far as possible. There should be a guard near the castle. A knight or a bishop is better. So the king position, number one point, strategy. Number two point, one has to be very careful about control of center. He who controls the center controls the game. And it is very important in opening and middle game stage because in that case the positional advantage remains with him. So normally in opening we develop our pieces towards center and then we start initiate. So number one king position, number two is center, and number three is open lines. A player should have good control of the open diagonal or files on the board. Number four is about a good pawn structure. Number five is about activity of pieces, active pieces. So these are the points I already stressed it in my first lecture of introduction. And from classic games, I will show all these things. And over and above, I told that a player should be vigilant about threats at every stage of the game. So let us see some more games. And the second game I give you again Botvinnik. Now Botvinnik is white and Grandmaster Lisitsyn is black. Lisitsyn was a good coach and author of chess books. Look, they are all playing on center. Now look here, at the moment, white cannot play e4. But if he plays knight c3, he will prepare. But in that case, the pawn remains blocked. So it would be a good idea with pawn on c4. The center looks really good. That's why before developing knight c4. So is d6, knight c3, knight d7. Immediate e5, he will exchange the queen with a slight better game. Take pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. Queen d8 gives a small advantage. So knight d7, preparing for e5. It is passively placed. It is better that modern players play king this g6, bg7 and castle quickly. Then they play e5, knight to c6. This is the better square. So in this case, knight is bad, poorly placed, blocking the bishop. Now there is no doubt who has the better center. So he plays e5. Now I told you that we should avoid unnecessary exchanges, unnecessary pawn moves. Now if white plays a pawn into pawn, black will be happy. His bishop will open up. He will take d and the bishop is ready. So it should not make unnecessary knight e2. Why? Normally, a player should bring knight to center, but white wants to keep the f pawn free. Here, the knight will block the f pawn. White has intention to play f3 later on. So, white plays knight e2. Now, this particular position, white has a better grip on center. White pieces are more centralized and more control of squares in center. So, here, now he plays bishop e2, controlling the g4 square. Bishop e3 to the center, castle. Now, white is preparing for a long castle. And then he wants to storm the pawns on the king side and attack the black. So, now there is a double attack on e4 point. So, he has to play, support it with f3. The bishop f3 is not so good. You will leave the c4 unprotected, knight e5 will come. So, f3 is more correct. Now you can see the drawback of the position. Now the knight on c6, he did not have moved the knight. But now to develop complete development, he must move the knight. That means the same piece is moving again and again. And also in a poor place. Now castle. You could have made long castle, but this is very safe way to play. White is better. Because now white is ready for any kind of opening in the center. Black cannot play c5, giving him a backward pawn on d6. And if in case of c6, knight c2 will give an advantage to white. Knight. Now I told you that in a cramped position, we should avoid exchanges, freeing the game. Knight into knight, black will be happy to exchange with bishop and most of his problem will be solved. So, knight. Now the position of black pieces are funny. The bishop is not having good mobility. The white pieces are fully centralized. Okay. Every time we should know how to make a plan. Now the position is good. Now you can see the d5 square is fantastic for white. Having how many control? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 control. So white wants to bring a knight and post. But which knight? This knight is already good. So this knight is not doing a job. That means it's a good idea to bring the knight. Then he will be terrific. All pieces centralized, terrific grip, and then take the initiative. So Botvinnik goes knight b4. Also giving a small threat. He can take knight into bishop with a spatial advantage. What is spatial advantage is getting a double bishop is called a spatial advantage. Giving opponent some backward pawn or weak pawn or taking control of an open line. So these are called spatial advantage. So here white can take knight into bishop and get double bishop. White can post a knight on center and in case of that capture the c5 will open. So good move. Knight d5. Now he cannot tolerate that. Now if black takes knight into knight, then pawn into, and here this position is very strong because black has backward pawn and very good square, and white can continue, maybe knight to b5, you cannot capture that, maybe you can bring rook to d1 and c1, then pressure on backward point, white stands clearly better. If the practical players now will take easy advantage of this, the knight has to come, now piece is going, so he cannot take a knight into knight, bishop into knight. Suppose you play bishop takes knight, then pawn takes, white gets a clear better. So in this case, let us go back to the game. Knight b4, he comes, knight d5, knight d7. Not willing to exchange. Bishop, why this move? The position is very strong for white. But one of his piece is not doing good, the bishop. So there was a very great coach called Makagano of Russia. Makagano trained Garry Kasparov in his childhood. So Makagano principle, the piece which is not functioning, the piece which is idle, one must activate that piece. One must bring the piece into the game. Now the bishop is not active. That means the bishop will be better placed in this diagonal or in other diagonal. So you must bring it to queen side. The piece is doing not good work. So he comes bishop to d3 and now knight e5. So I don't want to lose the pawn. So I come back. A player should be very careful, should not be, stubborn. I don't want to give the bishop. So here, place back again, hoping that black white will repeat and it will draw. There is a plan. There is always a plan. Now, next move I will play bishop d3, and now c4 is protected. Then I come back. Good position. So he stops that. Now rook against queen. White is giving some pressure because when I capture bishop into knight, rook is against the queen. This is also a middle game theme. A player should keep a note. In such cases, the pawn tension or capture in the center will be beneficial for the side having the rook. So here, tries to cover up. Preparing for f4 now, f5. White is getting a big advantage. Now this f5 is a serious threat. And once the knight is driven, maybe then I can play bishop takes knight, and there is a lot of problem will come on d7. So he comes c6 now. Before he could play. Now f5. Now initiating. White knight has no square. So also I get a tempo, and suppose you capture the d5 knight, he will capture the e6 and then f line is open. A big advantage. Takes. Now resulting action, let us examine. Material factor is equal. But as I told you, the 5 strategic factors, that king position, center, open line, pawn structure and activity of pieces. Now here center is good for white. The open line, the rook already in a good open line. The queen, bishop, everything is very good open line. This is all very good. The rook is very good. So this is excellent position. So open line and center. Now first you should clear the central tension. So many weaknesses in the black camp. The d6 point is weak. Now there can be many plans in such a position. White can concentrate on the d6 weakness. White can concentrate on the king side weakness. The so many weak squares, and exchanging the bishops also is a good idea. This is a good idea to exchange. The king will be very weak. So he plays now bishop f5. The queen should go to a safe square, queen c1. I want to play bishop into knight and then exchange the dark square bishop. He says, so bishop d4. I told you the exchanging dark square bishop leave the king totally weak. After that, lot of weak squares and the castle position is very weak now. Now he wants to exchange the queen. So white wants to exchange and winning and end game. Now must take. Now you can see that knight c7 there is a big fork. Takes and now winning the exchange. Of course, black could have avoided losing material, but his king position would have been more serious. So what we learned, basically black violated many strategic points. So for example, in the opening itself, he is putting the knight in a passive square. It was better to play g6. It was better here to play g6. Now knight c3, bg7, e4, d6. Now knight f3, castle. Now be2, e5. And now castle. Knight comes to an active square, not blocking the bishop. And both have got plan. Black wants to come on the king side, white wants to go on the queen side. This is a better way to play, modern approach. But this is just a passive position. Because of this, he got into cramped and bad position. Let's see one more game of boat winning. Now, let's see one more game of boat winning. So here, English opening. Normally, it transposes to d4 opening or pure English reti. Now, knight c3. That it is bad to play d5 because white will gain tempo. Pawn into pawn, queen into pawn, and then nc3. Gaining a tempo is very good for white. So he brings the knight out. Brings the knight out. So knight c3, now d4. We transpose to a queen's gambit or Nimzo Indian type of position. D5. So it becomes queen's gambit decline. Now the main line is knight f3, bishop g5, etc. And white goes for the exchange variation, Ragozin system. It should not be dangerous for black, but black should know how to play correctly against this. There are two type of plans in this position. White can prepare for a kingside attacking build-up as Garry Kasparov did against Nigel Short in their PCA final match 1992-93. Now bishop g4. Pressure. Immediate threat, bishop takes knight. So c6. He is immediately threatening bishop into knight and take. Queen cannot take, and if you take with a pawn, it will be very ugly structure. So c6. Now e3. Now white is at a crossroad. If white wants to play positionally for minority attack, then white should play knight f3, bishop, castle, and prepare these four pawns with these two pawns attacking four pawns. It is called a minority attack. White can also prepare an attacking setup like bishop d3, knight e2, and then castle with the idea he wants to expand the center f3. What Kasparov did against Short. So white has two type of choice. He can go for a minority attack. He can go for kingside build-up. White is waiting. Why this move? Normally knight f3 or bd3. Now the black c8 bishop, he has only one good square. This is the square he wants to come. Other squares are not good, not safe rather. So queen c2 takes that. This is keeping a flexibility that white can castle long also sometime. White can play bd3, knight a2, and then or white can go for minority attack. A very flexible move. Castle, bishop d3, and the threat is direct. Bishop into f6 followed by bishop h7 check. So there are sometimes positional threats, but now there is direct threat. So he comes knight with the idea bishop into he will replace with knight. So knight f3. That means white wants to go for a positional setup. Rook, castle. Now there is a plan of minority attack. Normally, how the minority attack comes, that normally white should prepare to play b4, b5 and take the pawn, giving a weakness here. And then he will pile up, bringing the rook here. So, but right now you can't play pawn b4. So white can play here, rook here. Preparing to play b4. And then b5. Then play b5. Then go for the minority. But in the game, he plays rook e1. See, this is 1966. The theory was not so much developed. I think it is not a good move right now. It was better. Black should have played knight to g6. Black should have played bishop to g4. This was a better move. But this gives a problem because bishop into bishop only move, bishop into knight only move, and knight. It is not about the three pawns attacking. Black can defend the e4 pawn on e4, but The position of the rooks are ideal. Now there is a 1 2 1 2 and 3 attacking. He will defend, of course, with bishop or pawn f5, but then this break will come. That will open lines for rooks, and all white pieces and pawns in the center will be very active. So defend. He is ignoring that. Black is giving a threat. What threat black is giving? He wants to come here and the exchange. We should notice always the threat. So he plays queen a4, stopping that bishop a6 move. So he comes now. So the pawn is supported, but you should always notice the change. Now black has more weaknesses. His king is exposed. The c6 pawn is unprotected, and the pieces are not coordinated. So white takes the opportunity, not going for the pawn. You can win the pawn, but gives counterplay. Counterplay. Then I don't want to play knight e2 and stay very passive. So better. White stands much better now, because now the rook's position no, are very good. I want to open up. Then both rooks will be very powerful for white. And the pawn is unprotected. The knights are ready to go to the center. White position is very strong. You see, building up a position, we should learn from the world champions or the great players how they were taking control of center, giving activity to the radius of the pieces. So here, it depends how long you will keep it unprotected. So it defends, but then knight e. Again the attack. There is a double attack. On the f5 pawn, attack. On c6 pawn, also attack. So he defends both. But now again double attack on the f5 pawn. So you have to defend. Now this is not good. G6 not good. Why? Because the squares will be weak and it takes away the square of knight also. So this would be not so nice at the moment. Okay. There are many plans. You can play e5, e4 now. So he avoided playing. He returned bishop c8. E4 anyway. Third attack. You take pawn into pawn. You will invite the knight to e4 with more serious threats. Queen here. Now rook. Now knight here. It takes pinning. The point is now the d4 pawn is double attack. So you should not play pawn into pawn, giving your center pawn. So he pins it. Pawn into pawn. Now it is very important. We get many times critical moments in the game. What is a critical moment? There will be a lot of choice. For example, if white plays hasty knight into pawn, everything is spoiled. Now most of his initiative is gone. So white should not hurriedly take, rather play rook f7. Now queen d5 is not possible. Now queen d5 is not possible. So next I want to play with a decisive threat. So he comes here into pawn. Now comes because the rook is already there. Now the queen will join the attack. So I think the position is now terrible for terrible. He gave up. I think he resigned here. He resigned. No, in the position he resigned because on queen d5 you can play rook into pawn. The only move. Queen check. Now only move. Well, if he goes to h8, mate in one, or he comes also, he gets mated. So he goes to f line, but then rook check, followed by mating attack because queen king will come. Then you may give queen check, and now the knight, then queen check. This is getting a hopeless position. Now he has to come here, and it will lead to mate. So there are mistakes. Basically, the position opening was not bad, but playing this move is not good. At the moment when d2, he should have played f5. The correct move was f5. In any case, white is better. In any case, white stands better here. White can prepare now queen to b1 with the idea of b4, b5. White can play immediately f3, opening the position for both his rooks. In any case, white is better, but this is worse. Very bad. So we should see that players' development, center, king position, how the classical players were handling. I want to take you to some game of Smyslov. Now, the game was white was Smyslov, black was an I.M. Steiner. So he goes normal controlling the center. Now this is Budapest Gambit. It is an unsound, not so popular one. The better was to play e6, so that knight c3, bb4, better g6, e6, even c5. These are good moves, but not e5. So you take the pawn. Now the main line goes knight g4, and in this case, white can play knight f3, knight c6, and white can play bf4, or white can play the modern approach is here. The modern approach here is to play e3. And on knight into pawn, knight h3. Idea the knight is coming, bishop comes and castles. White is clearly better because center is better, development is better, white strength better. But in the game, black plays for a gambit. No, not this, but black plays no. Did I overwrite it? Okay. So here, black plays the Frazovic gambit, knight e4. It is not so good. Pawn down, so he plays knight f3, check. The main idea is to exchange lot of pieces and then he will go for the e5. So bishop d2. I don't want to play nd2, he says, because the bishop will remain passive. So in the opening stage, bishop and knight are of equal value. So he plays knight into, knight into, knight c6, pawn attack. So a3, queen takes. Now he comes. Now how do we defend the pawn? It is now you can see white is material. If he can hang on to the material, then black will lose the game. So black must recover the pawn. But can he recover? Now we have a choice. We can play queen d5, queen e3 or queen d5 or queen c3. The queen c3 is the correct. We will realize why. Queen c3, he castles. Now you can see the black plan is next. He wants to bring the rook here and take the pawn. Take the pawn. That means white should do something. We should always take prophylactic measures. So in order to save the pawn, white plays rook d1. Idea, rook d5. So he comes here, rook d5. Now the pawn, black cannot recover. He cannot bring a fourth attack. So black prepares at least b6, bb7 to attack the rook. b6, bb7 to attack. So he comes b3, bb7, bishop a2. Now rook e8, castle. Okay, how we can handle the position? What black wants that white should move the rook and then he will recover the pawn with equal chances. You come back, then again knight c6, repetition. Or you surrender the pawn, then black has little problem. But white is already one extra pawn, so he decides to give the exchange for a positional advantage. Positional advantage. For example, instead of returning, he says you can take my rook and plays rook c1. Now, taking the rook is bad. He has taken, there is nothing better you can do. If you ignore the threat, it is just bad. You can never recover. Should take. Now, materially, if you see, it is not so dangerous, but the pawn is in danger now. 1 and 2. And central. White has got this knight is better, the poorly placed knight. There is no file for the rooks. So, white has a huge space and positional advantage for a small material deficit. I mean, minor piece and a pawn for a rook is practically almost equal, little better for black material. But positionally, he is lost. How is he going to defend the pawn? He cannot play rook c8. He cannot play rook c8 on account of d6. No, here c5. No, he plays d6. You cannot take it. Queen into rook will win. This is winning the game. Rook into rook back rank mate. Not mate, the queen will come. It is just bad. So he cannot do that. So here he cannot defend that pawn. And here takes. He cannot play d6 also. Now if you play d6, that is also bad. If you play d6, bishop b5. A new weakness. So only move. Then pawn e4 with a terrific game. Forced. Otherwise you take pawn into, queen into will come. Then knight into with a terrific game. So the only move. knight into pawn with a decisive center, and still the pawn on c5 pawn, c7 pawn in danger. This is very bad position. So in this position, he played here not d6 but played c5. No, 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 c5, c5. No, he played d6 in the game. He played in the game d6 only. So b5. This is the actual game. Pawn takes, knight takes pawn. Whatever he will do, the game is practically winning for now for white because he has got slight material advantage and a big positional advantage. Normally, a player should attack with 3-4 pieces. Here, only queen and black's queen and rook will in attack. So, very easy for white to defend it. So, white renews the threat, threatening the pawn, queen c7. Now he comes. Now there is an attack. Of course, you can ward off the attack, but why not grab material and defend? Now this is overwhelming because white has 7 pawns to black's 5 pawns and terrific center and more active pieces. Nothing. There is no more attack. Completely lost position. Now d5 is bad. In the event of g5, knight f5 is coming. Knight f5 will come. So he tries desperately. Now he is threatening to trap the queen. You know, always players should be vigilant. There is an immediate threat to trap the queen. So only move. Well, whatever you do, it is lost. He cannot do anything about it. So he plays this and it is lost. Not trapping the queen, going to back. Well, your position is just dubious now. It is hopeless. So he comes and winning the game. So we can see some more games of Smyslov. E4, C5. Sicilian defense. It is good. Against E4, I would recommend 4 defense. Sicilian, then classical E4, E5 or French Karuka. All these 4 are dealing with center. All other defense are not so. Here, D4 is not coming. In E4, E5, he is not allowing D4. French and Karokan prepare to hit the center. Knight F3, D4, CD, Knight D. White's position is better. Now, A6, this is called the Sicilian Nassdorf variation. Black wants to play actively and not allowing any b5 to any minor piece of white, preparing b5 at right time, bb7. So black has lot of active play. Nassdorf is one of the most popular line in modern chess. Bishop e2. Modern players play may either bishop g5 or they go for the English attack. Pawn f3, be3, queen d2, long castle. This is called the English attack. f3, be3, queen d2, g4, castle, etc. And the other old main line is this bg5. It's also equally good. So he plays b2, a very modest opening. I mean Geller, Boleslavsky, they used to play quick castling. This is the Scheveningen setup. e6, d6. So castle, queen c7. Okay. The point is that he wants to bring knight to c6 or prepare b5 and d7. There is no danger of any c6 weakness. Now black wants to play king h1, a4 and queen e1, etc. This is one plan. And main strategy is to go on the center with e5 preparation. a4, it is a move that he is preventing the pawn active b5. With this move, white stops the b5 plan, and also if given an opportunity someday he can prepare giving him a backward pawn after pawn a5 and seizing the b6 square. So it is a good move. So black stops that by playing b6. Bishop f3. Immediately there is a threat with pawn e5. Pawn e5 is a threat now. So he must be alert. So he plays b7, queen e2. Now, normally the standard plan, the king goes here, then queen comes like this to play for attack. But white has other intention. The point is now if a normal move like bishop e7, white can play bishop e3 and after castle, white will prepare g4 with an attack. This is the idea. The setup of white is designed to play g5 and some kingside space. Then he will prepare. The plan is to play this and play here and preparing rook coming to attack and the queen will come. This is the main idea. After g5, bg2, rook f3, queen h5. And at right time maybe I can play e5. Maybe e5. So here in the game he plays bishop e3. No, no, no. Not bishop e7. He plays e5. It's not a good idea. Not a good move. So he plays knight d5. Idea, the queen is under attack. And now queen. Now look here. If he will play queen to b c5, it is bad because you can prepare b4. On the event of here, queen traps. The queen has no room to go, and the queen is trapped. So a player must calculate. When you enter complication, a player must see the variation in advance. That when I play queen c5, pinning my knight, what to do. So it is important visualizing such variation. Now knight into, now this is attack. But after knight at d5, queen attack. So it takes, now pawn is pinned. The pawn is pinned. So he plays, still this is not working. By the way, why is not working? Bishop here. You cannot take. Bishop takes pawn and winning queen. And anyway, there is a threat now is coming. Anyway, threats are coming. So, still he cannot go for the tactical operation. Now, white is clearly better. Now, center or outer center. Seizing a square. I have already discussed what is an outer center in my introductory class. So, white is establishing a piece in the outer center. A very important thing. So the knight is taking so many squares. E7, D8, B8. So rook cannot come or knight cannot come. So he bishop G7 takes. Now if he plays with bishop into also is very bad because after bishop takes it, white will play bishop comes, not allowing the castle. This is just in a difficult situation. Now the king is stuck. So bishop takes is bad, and if he takes with d5, it is bad because black can play d6, white can play d6. Now queen d6, knight into pawn, the b7 attack. There is a discovery, queen against the king. You know the queen is against the king, so a discovery attack is coming, and directly there is a threat. In the event of bishop into bishop, again there is a threat is coming. So this is bad. Winning the position is clear plus. The a7 pawn, a6 pawn. So 2 bishop advantage, 3-2 majority. White has queenside pawn majority. White has bishop pair and better development. So this is not a good idea to capture d5. So he has to take knight into now bishop. The king is stuck, and castling queenside is very dangerous because the cover of the castle position of the king is bad. So he plays here f6. What else? Castle is bad. Now queen f2 will come with the idea the rook a2 and then pressure on the queen side file. It is dangerous. Bishop e3 is coming. He will lose the game very quickly. So it is not a good idea to go unsafe castle position. So he decided f6 with the idea the king on e7 is like in a castle position. e4. Now the bishop is penetrating. The bishop is coming to e6. So he comes here. Now a decisive threat comes. Bishop into bishop, rook into. Now how should white play? White is winning the game. A player should be vigilant about tactics in the game. Captures, checks, threats, rook into. Tactics. Now bishop cannot take it. Bishop takes, the queen e6 is giving mate in one. Mating pattern. Bishop takes it. It is a checkmate in one move. Checkmate. No, no, he cannot. So he has to take with the king, and that brings queen. That brings the queen here to giving again the serious threat of queen check. He cannot guard it. Now queen e7, suppose you guard, then rook check should win the game. Or queen check should win the game. Rook f1 check is all over. So he cannot guard the only move. He has to run the bishop check, the only move, and he resigns because after here the queen check and the rook will join, and otherwise also rook will join. So he is lost. So you can see when there is a positional advantage, tactical operation also very important. So in the game, what we learned is in the game what mistakes black did. Always you should see when you see a game what are the mistakes. So in this position, here it's okay, no okay, and now this okay, here okay. Now this position he should castle quickly. Bishop e7 here quickly castle. This is the correct way. And next castle. And now after this normal game continue. White can continue g4, a standard plan. But in this case, knight will come, queen will come, and this position is okay. So I leave this game, go for other two games of Smyslov. The part two I will cover. Petrosian, Botvinnik and Petrosian, and no, I will cover Tal, Spassky. Four parts I will finish all the classical world champions games. Examples. Now Unzikar. Unzikar is black. Smyslov is white. A positional game. So this is called this a D4 fianchetto classical setup. Classical King's Indian. Now E5. There is a point. Now if he plays pawn takes pawn, white is better anyway. Because white will play knight d2 and this is bad. He will lose the pawn because 3 attack will come. And in the game, he plays the knight here. Recover the pawn. The pawn is attacked 3 times. 1, 2, 3. But white finds a nice way. Knight a3. And now e4. Suddenly, two of black pieces are poorly placed. You can see the knight is poorly placed. The bishop is now blocked. And this knight is also not doing great. So white piece position is better than black. And white has better control of center. So white has got a small advantage already from the opening. He is preparing to, make a room for the knight and develop the bishop. Knight b6, okay. Take the file. The queen bishop will come. On queen to e7, then you can play knight b4, b5 with the idea bishop a3. Bishop a3 will come. So he plays rather bishop. But then c4. Why? Because white must not leave the knight. The knight must come into the game. How the knight will come? The knight should come like this, to this point and this. The knight should come to center. This. So he plays c4. So white has got an advantage, but push the pieces as much possible. Bishop a3. I want to bring knight, but why not activate the bishop on the diagonal? So it will be more active. This is what we learn from the classical world champions. आप आधा अब 10-15 मिनट के बाद आइए, कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात. So here the position we learn that he will come bishop activating, then knight to e3 and d5. Here he comes. Knight. Now you can see bishop into pawn is not a good idea. Bishop into pawn, white will get knight and winning the game because doubly attack, winning a material. So he cannot take it. And what about the knight is entering a fantastic outpost? Terrific knight. And capture will allow more advantages. And d5. Knight into knight is losing material. This is losing material. So he has to take bishop into. Pawn into. The reason is this is capture is bad. Then he will have a life for his bishop. So this is very good. The bishop is bad and now target in the open file. Queen. Now pressure. The idea now knight cannot return. There is pressure on the point. Pressure on the point. Knight cannot go safely. So he has to play knight coming. But then rook pressure on the open line. White advantage is increasing. A player should continuously improve during the game from strength to strength, strength to strength. Just preparing to double on the c5. Now defend the only move. Now the idea is next move I want to bring the bishop into the game. But why block the pawn? Why block the pawn? This move takes control, so no knight bishop can come. A good prophylactic move, controlling queen or knight cannot come, and then I can play bishop a3 with a great game. Strength through strength. White is keep improving. Now he is preparing to attack this point. Of course, there is a choice. You can play knight d2 defend, but when there is an active move, we should play. Now he plays bishop here. The bishop is actually hanging, but when he takes the bishop, he will also lose the knight because two rooks power against this. So he cannot recapture. So I am giving the bishop, but I will take the knight with the winning one more pawn. Here, winning. The only move. Now he loses material. This pawn will fall. This pawn will fall. This position is just bad. Just bad. Now he comes here. No bishop into pawn. Now there is three attack on the pawn. One, two, three. Second pawn will fall. And also good center and very easy to play. So you can see the mistakes by opponent. What went wrong? That what went wrong in the position is that in the game he had played this bad move. This move is not good move. Okay, he should play now in the game. Somebody plays b3. You can play here. Maybe here it is possible to play knight c6 and e5. This is possible. Then it is possible that you play here. Okay, nd7 is okay. This is okay. Now here e5 is knight is he should have played pawn into pawn. Knight into pawn is a good move. Pawn into pawn good move. Pawn into pawn possible. There should be complication. Ng4 is possible, but not knight h5. Okay, I leave this. Then one more last game of Smaislam. Arakhamia. This is the last game. So here, okay, the game started e4, Sicilian knight c3. Basically, this will lead to a close position, but white has not confirmed because he can play knight f3 and open the game, or he can play d3 bg2. So it is a very flexible move. Knight c6. Now he plays knight f3. Now bishop b5. It's not dangerous. Opening now it is not dangerous. Actually, more correct move. The modern players play knight d4 here. I mean, after knight into knight, pawn into, and white black gets counterplay. This is a position that the center pawn is not easy. Queen can come and defend the pawn, and then knight can come to e7, c6. This is how black should have continued. The modern grandmaster continued this way for black, but he played the game knight. So castle. Now bishop into. There is no square, active square for bishop. Bishop e2 will be very passive. So takes. Now in the opening stage, in the first 15 moves, bishop and knight are equal value. Only when game takes a character, close position, knight is better. If it is open, bishop is better. So the position in the opening stage, there is no character of the position. So bishop knight are of equal value. The position is little better for white now because white has castled already, and black bishop c8 is passive. So white stands already little better. So he comes queen c7, takes. Okay, he can take with the queen, but after that rook e1 with the idea that I can bring the knight to d5. This is a good point. So on b7 nd5 can come. So this is giving some pressure. So here he comes. White gets some good play. Now defend c7 point, castle, but then rook will come with an initiative. So b5, I mean queen into is not so good yet. So after this knight into. With the idea he wants to create a backward pawn. After e5, the pawns are backward. So he comes d5 to not to get a backward pawn. So white wants to open. Now the point is the topic changes. Now the discussion is king position. Black king in center. The operation on the center is bad for the player having king in center. White wants to open the F line, E line quickly to punish the black king. So very well played. F5. Check, no problem. Now he castle. The point is, I told that there should be a good castle position should have a good pawn cover. There must be a guard near the king, a bishop and a knight. There is no guard near king, and already there is a pawn tension. The pawn f6 can come. So white pieces are ready for the king side. The white has four pieces in action: rook, bishop, queen, and knight. Other than the a1, all pieces can join. So white has already got a decisive plan for attack. F6. So if you play G6, maybe even this is also good move. Your queen can come directly. Queen D2 and immediately you can come. KH1, KH8, Rook F3 will come. This is also a plan. But Grandmaster play coolly. They never get hurry for any kind of operation. So good move. Now go away from center. You cannot go there, then bishop will never participate in the king side. Why this doing this? Because if you go directly, he can play rook and preparing to bring the bishop to f8. Now he will bring the bishop and then he will survive a long time. So he wants to drive the knight bishop from the king side. So you have to stay there. Now he is giving a pawn sacrifice. But why he is giving the pawn that immobility? For example, now the queen is coming. You can see the bishop here was coming to f8, but now he cannot come. So hurriedly he comes. Idea when now rook d8 will come. Idea he will bring rook d8 to defend the square. So queen comes. The only move. Now rook comes. With the threat, the rook is coming here. So he played rook. There is no time. If there is no time to bring queen, the plan of queen and queen is not working because there is. If you bring the queen, I will give immediate check. Queen into pawn check. No need to waste time. But rook check will mate. So you cannot go waiting pattern. So in the game he played bishop takes pawn. This is losing material. A piece down, and that too the king side attack is still going on. This is easy. Now you just remove the rook and bishop check will kill him. Lost. Now he will play rook here, anything, and double the rook into pawn, rook into f7, rook into c6, destroying him completely. So what we learned from these games, now originally, see, e4, c5, and c3, now in c6. The player playing a Najdorf dragon should play a different move. This is the correct move. If you want to play dragon or Najdorf. Because if you play g3, it is a commitment for close opening. Then you can play g6, bg7, bg2, and then knight e2, then knight c6, castle e5 with a good game. It is a close position. But and if you play now an f3, now you can play knight f6, and now d4 will transpose to the regular main lines. Najdorf, Dragon, Scavenging or Classical, whatever. So opening is not problem. And here in this position, if you want to insist, now black has to have very flexible line. So here, if you are a accelerated Dragon Sicilian, then g6 is a good. Now d4 will lead to accelerated dragon. So on the plane e6, it goes to a Paulson type of position and knight. You should have played here and d4 with roughly equal chance. This is a better choice. Well, my idea is not to discuss the opening. I want to discuss the various middle game themes from the classical games. And turn by turn, I will take 2 or 3 world champions in one session. Today, Botvinnik Smyslov is over. The next session, I will take Petrosian and Spassky. And then I will take to Karpov, Khanan, then Kasparov, and some other games like maybe Capablanca. So I will finish this in 4 parts. So part one is over today. Part two, I will take it. Who are the grandmasters I told? I will take Spassky and Petrosian in the next session for classic players. And now, while discussing the classic games, I will go on the various middle game themes and I will avoid much of opening discussion because I am going to anyway cover when I am doing the opening report time for you. after the classical games. So thank you very much, friends, on behalf of UN Chess Academy, and see you again. So, namaskar. Bye.